Into news and views with myself, Salalo Makudire, and we continue to unpack the big political and economic stories that are shaping South Africa today. And I think none is bigger than the State of the Nation address later this week on Thursday, in particular, at around 7 p.m. President Cyril Ramaphosa will deliver his State of the Nation address before a joint sitting of Parliament, essentially setting out government's policy priorities and pledges for 2026 and beyond. But it doesn't look like everyone is buying into the rhetoric of the State of the Nation address. The Civil Action Group, OUTA, or Organization Undoing Tax Abuse, has warned that once again the address risks being heavy on political messaging and light on concrete solutions to South Africa's deep-rooted economic and governance challenges. Wayne Duvenage, OUTA CEO, joins us shortly to explain why his organization says past addresses have produced little impact beyond task teams, frameworks, and pilot projects that were not necessarily fruitful. And it also be talking to us about what exactly real reform should look like, and how you can influence it. And he's joining us via our virtual platform. Wayne, thank you so much for giving us your time. Always a pleasure having you on Salam Media. Good morning.
Good morning, Salala. Nice to be with you.
Pleasure's all ours. And I think we can start with the big picture. It looks like OUTA is very, very skeptical ahead of the State of the Nation address this upcoming Thursday. Can you break it down for our listeners why you see this much anticipated address as likely to repeat past patterns of rhetoric over meaningful results that South Africa desperately needs right now?
Yeah, look, we've said it before. It's a bit of a yawn situation. State of the nation, if you unpack just those words, the real state of our nation is one in despair. But what you will hear, and what we hear year after year, is a president getting up on stage and telling us about how good things look in the future and some of the green shoots or some of the good things that have happened in the past. And yet our economy goes backwards. It grows at a minimal pace, around 1%. We may get a slightly higher growth rate than that, but we should be, quite frankly, in the 3 to 4 to 5% growth rates, given our potential as a country. Our economic policies are pushing more people into poverty and out of employment than into employment. And so, yes, we'll hear a few good things like, we had a relatively successful international conference last year with the G20. We see our interest rates stabilizing now, and we do see that we're off the grey list. But the thing is, we should never have got onto the grey list before. If we're showing slight improvements in growth, this is off an extremely low base, and this continuous at SONA speeches, this rhetoric that things are okay when they are just, we are failing. You talk about, I don't have to remind you about the smart city at Lanseria 3, 4, 5 years ago. Not a sod of soil has been turned. I know you don't build these institutional cities overnight, but nothing happens. So these are good ideas, and ideas or plans are just ideas until they are actually put into place. So yeah, we cannot hear any more talk about professionalizing local government and municipalities, or professionalizing government services, while the cadre deployment process continues to unfold. And we are now in court to go and reverse a decision made by Higher Education Minister Buti Mandamela for reappointing a CEO, and this is just one, so we had to choose one case, but there are others in the higher education space where they reappoint a CEO who has got 4 to 5 years of failed audits, qualified audits from the Auditor General, that has got corruption flags flying all around it. And he had every opportunity to redo and revamp and reintroduce oversight, good boards, and new CEOs at the CETAs. And nothing happened. And so we hear a president talking, but talk is cheap. We got to see the action. And again, we can assure you that he'll paint this glorious picture, acknowledging a few challenges, and we've got to sit back and suck it up. It's unacceptable.
I want to come to a very, very, I think, important issue that you've raised, and I think you also just mentioned it right now. When it comes to governance and leadership in very, very key institutions, the issue of delayed appointments at bodies like SETA, as you mentioned, to some of the extended bodies at Sandral and RTMC. How does this leadership instability affects service delivery on the ground? Because there's an almost detachment on the two realities. We'll often feel like the boardroom conversations and what happens in the echelons of leadership doesn't trickle down to on the ground and how people interact with government and the services that we receive.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. So we've got good procedures and policies as a country. We've got a great constitution. The problem is if you don't implement it, then things start to unravel and fail. So those few examples you quoted at the SETAs every 5 years, boards need to be reinstated. New boards need to be appointed. Why is that? So that you remove the staleness. You would keep one or two people to get some continuity of the intellectual property on the board, but you bring in new people. There are business players that come onto these boards. It gives you an opportunity for change and good oversight. And you would think that the boards of SETAs, who have been in the news for the wrong reasons, would be changed at this 5-year interval. And all CEOs who come up for the end of their period, it's very unusual to reinstate a CEO for another 5 years unless they've been outstanding. Well, that's not been the case. And we've seen at Sanral, this institution, with billions of rands allocated to it every year, has been in the news for the wrong reasons. Tenders gone out, cancelled, a lot of question marks, gone to court on tenders. And that board, by the way, was reinstated for a further 3-year period. The minister knew the time period was coming up for renewal, months, years in advance. And nothing happened. So you have a knee-jerk reaction. Oh, we're not ready, so we're going to extend them for another 3 months. The same thing at ATNS, the Air Traffic Navigation Services, in the news for the wrong reason. And you ask yourself, with all this knowledge beforehand, with all the time you have to find good appointees and invite civil society and others in, we gave a lot of names, for instance, for SETA board chairs, 15 of them. We went and selected them off LinkedIn and other areas just to find good profile people with experience. We were told, we hear on the news that Bladen Zamande stepped in and intercepted any of our nominations because he doesn't like OUTA. Why? Because we've been criticizing him on the networks that he's had in place that have run corrupt organizations like NSFAS and some of these SETAs. Those appointments were put in by him. So here you have political interference. And the president just recently again states we need to professionalize the public sector. Now, you can say that as much as you like, Mr. President, but if you cannot demonstrate it through your cabinet and through the people that are supposed to do the job on your behalf, then you are failing dismally. And so, again, the state of this nation, the state of these state entities, the post office has now collapsed. Even the business rescue practitioners have given up. That's a state institution that has a social mandate to the people. SABC is, it just is collapsing. It doesn't have a funding mechanism. Why is that, Mr. President? Tell us about that in your State of the Nation is what we're saying. But I'm afraid we won't hear that.
Lastly, before I let you go, Wayne, as the rest of the country now prepares to watch the address on Thursday night, what would you say is the one signal or commitment from the president that would convince you that this year's SONA is slightly different from the others and not just another speech of promises as it is the expectation right now?
Yeah, look, I mean, maybe we would like to hear him say, look, I'm going to take the lead in professionalizing our government. I'm going to take Senzo Mchunu off long leave and dismiss him as my police minister, because we cannot have people in any compromised position. So I'm going to take the lead on that. I'm going to task my cabinet members to explain to me why we are not replacing boards on time. I'm going to ensure that the criminal justice system, its budget is doubled. on the basis that we bring in professional assistance internationally and locally to ensure that that money is well spent in dealing with the priorities of uplifting our forensic investigation skills in the Hawks, in the NPA, our prosecution skills. We're going to capacitate SARS to go and fetch all that money that we're losing in illicit trade, and make a commitment. By the end of this year, we will have reduced illicit trade in tobacco and alcohol by 50%. And we're going to have, not this time, talk about task teams. Within 1 month, the crack shot task teams will be in place. And then we can measure him within a month or two. If he makes those types of statements and puts statements that are measurable on the table, then I think we might be able to believe him. But for the last 7-8 years, there's been nothing that has convinced us. So let's see what he says on Thursday.
There you go, Wayne Duvenage, CEO of organization and doing tax abuse. Thank you so much for chatting to us. And I hope we're going to chat again to reflect on some of the promises that are going to be made in this year's SONA.
I hope so.
There you go. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I think SONA, it has become a yawn, as Wayne alluded to there. But are you going to watch? Are you going to, listen to what the president has to say, his plans that he has outlined for 2026, or you don't care anymore? Because it almost feels and sounds like it's the same speech each and every year. Studio line is 0116800355 on WhatsApp, 0617660355. What are your thoughts on SONA? Are you still excited about it? Are you going to watch? Are you going to listen? Are you interested in what the president has to say? Or you just don't care anymore? Going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll be looking at a very, very important issue out at Rodin. They're rejecting anti-Semitism claims after a tennis controversy. And we'll be speaking to South African Jews for a Free Palestine, Megan Horres, right after this.